What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Seven Figure Photographer Live. I don't even know what day it is. Thursday, April 21st. I guess the time doesn't matter. We're live. We're here. We're good, I guess. Mia's here with us. Everybody say hi to Mia. Mia's there.
Hello.
Mia's on the other side. If you guys are paying attention, make sure to open up the live chat. Mia will be there to answer any questions. Actually, I'll go over that here in a second. But today, I want to talk to you about the importance of empathy in sales. Now, one of my favorite people in sales is Zig Ziglar. And he said, if people like you, they'll listen to you. But if people trust you, they'll do business with you. So today, that's what we're going to talk about after this quick introduction. What's up, guys? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam Marvin, and I have been in the photography industry for 25 plus years. While I love being a creative, business is my passion, and elevating the industry of photography is my focus. I created the Seven Figure Photographer to share my journey to seven figures and help others find their way too.
That's amazing.
All right, so we are back today. Please make sure, if you guys are following from YouTube, great. If you have come into this live presentation through one of the links on Facebook or anywhere else, make sure you hit the button that says open in app and then click on the chat. Looks like Tim's back. I was wondering if Tim would be here today. I hope that everything was amazing for you at Shutterfest. Sad we couldn't be there, but it must have been fun because we didn't hear from you for 3 days. So I guess, 3 days. So hope you're doing well. Hope you're having fun. For those of you who are new here, please make sure to subscribe. Hit the subscribe link below. Also remember, for those of you who don't have the time to sit down and watch these every day live or even in the evening, we do have our podcast, which is live. Those they do come up a little bit slower or pretty much like a week later or something like that on the website, but check it out. Also, if you guys are interested in getting a little bit of help with your business or maybe even just getting some insight from the outside, we have Coffee with Sam. You can go to our website, the7figurephotographer.com. There's a link that says Coffee with Sam. Go ahead and get signed up for that. It's a free 30-minute intro or, well, not intro, like a consultation looking kind of at your business a little bit more in depth and seeing if there's something that we can give you some insight on where to take it or what to do with it. So today, what is empathy? And I know sometimes I struggle with this one. I am an empathetic person. Would you say that I'm empathetic? We introduced Mia here. She's on here. She's wearing her glasses today. Well, you're just giggling. I just asked if I was empathetic, and you're just giggling.
Yes, I think
That's probably not a good sign.
I think you can be empathetic.
I can be empathetic.
Yes.
Oh, man. This is hurtful. I probably shouldn't have asked you that question.
No, that's not meant to hurt you.
So you don't think I'm empathetic?
No, that is not what. Did I just say you were not?
You just didn't say that I was.
I said you can be.
I can be. So what were you going to say?
I don't think it's always like your first natural reaction,
You're
but
right.
I think you try very hard.
It's not my first natural reaction. When my kid falls down and scrapes his knee, I'm like, see, I told you not to be an idiot.
Right.
So you're right. It's not my first reaction. In fact, one of the stories I'm going to share today is about how somebody called me out on it. So you're right. You're 100% right. I struggle to be empathetic as my first. Maybe I wonder if that's one of those things that's what is your first, what's your first response?
Right.
Is it empathy? Is it I don't know. And I think that we probably get a lot of that from,
But I think if you are that way, it shows how genuine your heart really is because you're attempting to do something that doesn't come natural to you. So,
all right, I'll take that.
Take that.
Okay.
Because I do think
so. So first and foremost, well, welcome, James. Glad to have you back. And the first thing is, let's start out obviously with what is the definition of empathy. You want to take a stab at it? I want to hear what you say.
Empathy?
Yeah. What's empathy?
Understanding other people's feelings and taking them in as your own and sharing that journey with them.
Wow, that's pretty good. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Because the definition because I wanted to just get the definition from like the dictionary.
Oh, okay.
And it says the ability to understand and share the feelings of others
There you
or
go.
of another. So at the same time, you also have sympathy.
Yes, that's
And
different.
sympathy is actually like the same, like it's like related, but empathy is not to be confused with sympathy. What's the difference? Sympathy isn't related, or sorry, it's not related to empathy. Sympathy is not related to empathy. They are two completely different things. But empathy is not a feeling, not feeling a certain way towards somebody, which is what sympathy is, like feeling bad for someone.
For somebody.
But empathy instead, it's trying to genuinely understand their perspective regarding a specific situation. So
Right.
it's like putting yourself, like what's the common term? Like
Putting
I
yourself
walk
in the
a
other
mile in
person's
their
shoes.
shoes. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the difference.
But sympathy is your perspective mixed into it. Like you're not taking yourself out of the situation, where empathy, you're supposed to take yourself completely out.
Wait, did you just say that backwards? Maybe I misunderstood.
No.
So you're saying sympathy is not taking yourself out of the.
It's
Oh, yeah,
kind
that
of
would make sense.
It's your perspective of how the other person.
It's your perspective of how the other person, but
Yeah, so like
you're
people
still-
come to me and they're like, "Oh, I feel so bad for you. Like I'm sympathetic. Here's some flowers." Where an empathetic person would come and like clean my floor or sit by me and stick around and ask how I'm really feeling.
So are you saying that somebody that comes and does that wouldn't be doing it just out of sympathy?
No, I think someone who comes and just like here's the like when Ansley passed. Here's the flowers, which is great, but there's a difference between we're doing this because that's what we feel versus the person that comes and sits and waits and really
Okay.
experiences that with me and then is like, how can I like just listen and help you in your journey?
What's funny is that oftentimes we mistake what other people's intentions are, and I think sometimes we mislabel.
Yeah, and that could
Because
be true
I think
too.
that they're so specifically similar. I think that sympathy really boils down to like when somebody like just like I think it's kind of more in the action. Whereas empathy's still in the action, but it's like it's definitely still in the action, but I
Taking it
don't
all
know
in.
if I just made that all confusing. You threw me for a loop
Sorry, I
on that
didn't
one.
mean to
But
throw you for a loop.
okay, but anyway, obviously you would know a little bit about it because you went through a lot of stuff with Ansley and with people being sympathetic as well as empathetic.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people do overly push sympathy in an effort to be empathetic,
Right,
but they miss
absolutely.
the mark.
But I don't think on their faults. I think, again, it just comes to some people can do it naturally, and some people have to kind of really work at it. And I think the more you work at it, the more empathetic you become.
Okay, we'll go with that. So I'm going to tell a story. And this is actually kind of funny because like when you started out, because I think that like why this really falls into sales so much is because literally we've had this discussion about how everything in the world, like everything in our life is sales, right? We were out of town with a friend and we had a situation happen and that friend really gave me an earful about something because of the situation it put them in. However, there was like no intention on my behalf of like creating that situation. But when it boiled down to it, she finally just said, just show me some empathy. And like for me, that was one of those situations where I was like, it was kind of like in that situation, it helped me recognize like where I was going wrong. This person is actually a really hard person to argue with because they don't typically see the light of anything that anybody's saying. But I think it's because what happens is until you show them empathy, even if like, can you fake empathy?
I think
Because like
I
that's
think
the
you
one
kinda
spot where
can, and I think
I'm
that's
like,
where
is
it's hard.
faking empathy more sympathy?
Yeah, I do agree. I think if you're faking it, it's more on the sympathy
But you
side.
can still. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you really can. Like, because I would say that you. I don't know.
That's an interesting question.
That is really interesting because like I feel like you could fake empathy, but then at the same
But
time,
at the same
like
time, the actual act of just sitting through it with them is
kind of
empathy.
empathetic. Like, so you can't.
There's just different layers of it.
Yeah, that's really, man, this is maybe a whole lot deeper than I ever expected. But anyway, ultimately, what I learned from the situation is that, like, with that person, and actually in sales a lot, like, sometimes you just can't get anywhere until you show empathy. And that's a lot of times why, because people are projecting. So, for instance, I talked a couple weeks ago about going to a car dealership and how, like, we kind of set a plan. We're like, okay, I'll pull up next to the car, you jump out and I'll play blocker, and you jump back in the car before the salesman gets there. Because I think that, we oftentimes, like, expect that salespeople are going to lack that empathy, and we've kind of placed that slimy salesman personality on salespeople because we've dealt with people in sales that haven't shown empathy. And so, like I was saying, oftentimes I think people we expect to sell to us are not going to show empathy. But when you do show empathy, you have a tendency to create a paradigm shift. And what that does is it lowers barriers with people and gives them an opportunity to open up to the possibility of this person really does truly care about me. Now, I think that it's really important that you start out early, because I think sales is so much more than just like being in the sales room. We have to start showing empathy and building trust from really early on in the relationship. But sales is really about controlling without overpowering. And I think that that's a really necessary thing to understand, because when you're in the sales room, we have a tendency, anybody in sales understands you have to control the situation. And sometimes it gets out of control, and then people try to frantically gain back control, and we have a tendency to create negative experiences for people, and we lose that whole trust and empathetic vibe. So when you're in a sales situation, you want to make sure to control the situation, but show empathy without overpowering them. And I think that that's one of those things that it's kind of borderline. Like, if you're overpowering a sales situation, you're probably, like, there's probably not any empathy there. Like, you're probably missing out. A perfect example of this is, I've told this story many times, the Louis Vuitton purse.
Yeah.
I had a client that had, they'd racked up like $4,000 or $4,500. I know it was in that $4,000 range. Like what they wanted to purchase for their daughter, and her mom just said, there's no way I could spend that much on senior pictures. And I jokingly said to her that, like, I think that your Louis Vuitton bag costs more than those pictures. The husband laughed about it. He told her to just, like, give me the card, because he was like, I told you not to bring that purse. But that was one of those times where I was not leading the sale with empathy. I was literally, that was kind of it was a shitbag way to do it. But I was lacking empathy at that time. Like, and that's one of those things, like, instead of seeing her say that and being able to really kind of say, like, I totally understand. And that's one of the most powerful things you can do in sales, when people say anything. Like, when they say, I just don't know how I could do that. I don't know how I could afford that. I don't know, my husband would kill me. Like, those are all opportunities where, when you repeat the question to the client, that is, like, just repeating the question is showing that you're listening. And listening is, like, I think a huge part of empathy, because you're really hearing what they're saying.
You're validating their concerns.
You're validating their concerns, but then you're also, I think that in sales, if you don't show ways to overcome, then I think that you're failing to show empathy, or failing to do what you have to do. Because somebody that truly cares and is empathetic, like, is not just going to say, okay,
Here's
well, we're
done. Yep.
We're going to show you, okay, I totally understand how you're feeling. And I can understand, because my wife would probably be pretty upset if I just spent $7,000 without telling her. But, and then kind of go into that. So this really also does become about objections and whatnot like that. Another story, and this is one of those times where I actually used empathy, but I also kind of gave, I took power by giving power. if that makes sense, or I took control by giving the power, was when I was trying to talk my wife into the idea of actually taking over the escape room. And so when that was the case, like she was absolutely against it for the longest time. In fact, probably for, well, I don't even know how long, but it was a long time until it finally became like one of those times where it was like her idea. And then once it was her idea, then I could actually build on that and use that. And that was really, because like if I were to be like just not have any empathy, which is typically my MO with stuff when it comes to business, I just have a tendency to bull over it and do it without asking my wife. But when I do have her blessing, I guess you would say, then I get a lot further with it, if that makes sense. So I think it's funny though, because kids reverse empathy in sales. Like when you think about how kids actually sell to their parents, like, and I think it's really sad because what's crazy is kids and children have a tendency to be incredibly strong salespeople. And I think that we're born strong in sales, but we stifle it. Parents stifle the sales in their children because we have a tendency to just say, no, mom and dad said no, and that's the way it's going to be, instead of giving kids the opportunity to negotiate with their parents. And that might actually be talked about in our book, Business Book of the Month, because I know he talks about how like letting your kids like actually negotiate with you, and giving them an opportunity to sell you. My son, he always does like, and what I mean by they reverse empathy is they take advantage of the empathy, I guess you will. They know that mom and dad love you enough. And so like, I always hear this is like what my son does right now. And the reason I'm not very open to it is because I, for years, did it to my parents. And so it's like, I think it's just a natural circle. But my son will be like, Dad, like all like kind of somber, if you will. And I'll be like, yes, son. And he's like, never mind, you'd say no anyway. And I'm like, okay, well, you're saying that because you know that I care enough to ask what is it, and it is more of a manipulation tactic, but they're taking advantage of the fact that they know you empathize with them as a parent and as a child. And so I think the kids really try to reverse that. So are you finding your spot? Mia's over here. If you look at her, she's just like flipping
I'm like,
through
I
her
know
book.
it's in here somewhere. He says, kids are the best salespeople on the planet. They're passionate, relentless, persistent closers, able to break down their parents' resistance until they get what they want.
Yeah, and I think that it's sad in so many ways because I am so strong about this with my son. Like, I don't want to be taken advantage of. Yes. And that's the hard thing but at the same time, I stifle him so badly because I don't want to be taken advantage of. And so I just shoot him down and say no. And when he keeps pushing, instead of being like, you're right, you make a good point, I'm just like, no, I'm the dad. I said no, and that's the way it is. That's final, right? Some kids like continue to push, and that's kind of my kid. But then I hear him say things at times. I'll be like, why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you ask me about it? He's like, well, because I know you would have said no. So give them the opportunity, and give your kids the opportunity to be great salespeople, because sales is important throughout your whole life. So somebody that is truly empathetic will help. And that's what I was saying earlier about how in the sales room, make sure that you're listening for people's cries or for the experiences. Like we've all heard it, like all the different objections. But like I said, if you truly are empathetic and you truly do care about your client and understand where they are, you will help them find ways around the situation. I've explained this one many times. I've had clients that were here and they didn't necessarily want to say, I can't afford it now, but they kind of give you BS excuses. And so somebody that's truly empathetic will say, is there something I can do to help this situation go forward? We do have options, those kinds of things. And I think that it's really powerful when you can be able to say to people, I want to make sure that you understand. And I use this, I actually use it in sales a lot because like I hate I feel bad when I know that people have a strong budget and I've already doubled the budget, but then we get to the end and I'm like, okay, now we got to talk about upgrade options. And I'm like, I know we've already like kind of destroyed your budget, but I just don't want you to find out that I offered this to somebody else and you were like, why didn't I have that option? So I'll use that, but not so much of a way to manipulate it. But I feel really bad if I'm not offering people the option to upgrade when I offer it to everybody else. I kind of already touched on this, but empathy really establishes trust. And I think that it's so important that we really start this journey early on, especially in our industry in photography. I think that's why it's so important that we are meeting our clients at least once before the session for like a studio or an in-home consult, or not an in-home consultation, but a consultation. We do the studio tour, we do the consultation in-home, and then we meet them for the shoot. All three of those times that we're meeting, even before the sales, we're trying to show them that we truly care. We're hearing their stories. I think that empathy also goes into, like, I think you can show empathy even if you do forget things, but I think that showing that you care enough to remember things like names or what's happening with their parents or happening with their grandparents, or knowing, like, for instance, if one of your seniors' parents had like a heart attack, knowing those things and understanding those things are a way that you can show that you truly care. And showing that you truly care establishes that trust. And ultimately, if you're able to establish trust in the relationship, people will buy from you better, but then also you will have a lot more longevity in that relationship with your clients, going beyond with referrals and having those customers ever come back to you and whatnot. So I think that once you have established that trust and you've created, you've shown that true empathy, it makes it easier to ask the hard questions of your clients. Like, can I ask you why, like, you feel this way? Or can I ask you why you think that that's too much money? Or can I ask you why you don't want pictures of your kids on the wall? Can I ask you why? Like, those kinds of things. Because I think that all too often photographers get so hung up on this concept of, I don't want to push. I don't want to push them. But I think that people have a tendency to shift into that I'm being sold to mode. Did you have a... No. You're just putting your finger up. So people have a tendency to shift into that mode of I'm being sold to. And so they kind of put up those barriers. But when you've created trust, because you've shown empathy or you've been empathetic to their needs and to their life, when you have created that trust, asking those uncomfortable questions is a lot easier. I have a tendency to feel like I've created trust with people and then I share too much. So, but at the same time, like, that's also like sharing with them. Like, I want them to feel like I trust them enough to share. And that's something I think that can also be powerful in sales beyond, is when you can create those relationships where you can share more with people and they feel like, oh man, like, this person feels strongly enough to share these personal moments in their lives with us. But I think that it also boils down to like that authenticity thing as well, which ultimately creates trust all in its own. So do you have any thoughts on that, Mia, on all that? Because that's pretty much
what you got. Well, I was just thinking of one family that came in that I think you really displays what you did well, because they had they came in to do family portraits because the senior's grandmother was passing away.
Yeah.
And so then when she came back to actually view them, it was hard for her, and she was frustrated because her husband didn't come, and she's like, I wanted him here to support me, to see these pictures of my mom that's just passed away. And she was really iffy about getting the albums for the kids, because she was going to do like 2 albums for the kids and this and that. And it was just nice watching Sam walk it all through with her. Now, we'd already obviously established trust with this customer, but just helping her recognize that maybe right now this is too much and it feels like she was doing too much, but down the road it might be something that she truly wants. And she had enough trust in us agree with that and to get things that was probably a little bit more than she could handle emotionally or beyond her capacity at the time, but recognize that we were there for her and the long term. And I think it makes such a difference.
Well, and I think that like a big part of that was just like understanding that of course it's going to be hard, like we're going to deal with it, and she dealt with it in her own sort of way. But we even went as far as to say, like, she said to me, she's like, okay, like I'm ordering these things, but I'm probably not going to pick them up for a long time. Yep. And I said, I totally understand that. But at the same time, like when I think people have a huge opportunity. And when I say opportunity, I'm talking about a bad opportunity to take advantage of people in situations like that. Nothing like makes me feel more like gross inside than trying to sell to somebody who's experienced loss.
Right.
Like that to me kills me. However, I have to also understand that like I have to be able to make money in order to cover my expenses. I can't just give things away. But at the same time, I also have to recognize that, okay, I want her to make decisions that are going to truly be impactful for her down the road, because I worry about like her regretting not doing something. And so you have to be a strong enough salesperson and strong enough what's the word? Respectable enough to say, like, instead of take advantage of those situations and say, oh, like you're really going to like this bigger album, give them the options of what can be like, this would be great. But like, I never have a problem saying and I never have a problem saying to a customer, that might be too big for your wall. Or maybe that's going to be something that just pushes you over the edge. Or maybe that's going to be something like with albums. Like, let's be real. Most kids don't take their albums off to college. Most of those albums are going to sit on a shelf or go into a box until they've grown up, gotten married, and had kids, and then want to protect it in their own home, or grandparents or parents have passed away. And so like those things, like we sold albums with grandma and the like parent albums for the kids, because mom wanted them to have them. And she was kind of like, well, but will they ever look at them? And I was like, probably not, but ultimately they're going to treasure these down the road. And so don't take advantage, because that's not empathetic. Don't take advantage, but understand and use the ability of being honest about, okay, like this is a great option, but this is also a great option and might even be a better option. I want to sell giant pictures to everybody, but sometimes I'm like, okay, like let's make sure that this is going to look good on your wall, because ultimately that's going to be one of those trust issues down the road. If they get home and they hang it on the wall and it's hanging off two ends of the wall, they're probably going to be like, oh, that guy like just wanted to sell us the big picture instead of caring about what was going to look good. When you do something that looks good, and we go into clients' houses all the time and they're like, oh my gosh, like I love the way this looks on my wall, or I've loved that for so long. That's when, but that, I think that really takes being empathetic to people's needs and to what they really want and love. When I have customers that are like, I don't hang like pictures of my kids on the wall, I want to punch them in the face.
That makes me so sad.
And be like, really? Like, what kind of tool are you? But it happens. I mean, it's life. What do you do? So, if you're not an empathetic person, I am empathetic. I truly do care about people. My first reaction is not empathy typically. But it is something that is such a powerful thing in the sales room. If you can truly find ways to put yourself in the shoes of the people that you're working with, understand what their needs are. Like sometimes one of the biggest obstacles or objections that we get that I hate, because it's just so hard to work around, is like, we're in the process of buying a new house. Like, you can't do anything about that. But there are ways to say, you know what? I totally understand that, and I would never want to mess with that, because I truly, like, I can't even imagine how like painful that would be. But I do have some options for how we can get this all taken care of, so you guys don't have to come back, and we can just go ahead and finalize the order, but we won't put anything on credit or anything like that. until everything goes through at the house, and then we'll start your payment plan, or we'll charge your credit card then, or we'll do the financing then. And that kind of just makes things easier, and it shows people that you truly care. So lots of different options that you can do. Tim says that you are super empathetic. I think the EM was not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
She's just super pathetic.
You're such a brat.
I'm just kidding. So I hope that was beneficial for you guys. Just remember, like, empathy in sales is stronger than you'll ever know. We're all born salesmen. We just have to awake the salesman within us, and give people the best you can, and truly care about people. It will go so far. Like, this is kind of where like I wonder if it borderlines, because like I truly care about people, but I try really hard to make them feel like I care, to the point where I almost feel like it's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you, like, even you know that, like, I'm talking about with clients, like, because I sometimes have clients that I just am like, I don't ever want to see this person again. Yeah. But I still have to try to make them feel like I care, and that they're having a good experience and stuff. And I think that's just a personal battle within myself, because I'm like, okay, I don't ever want to see this person again. But do I truly care? Like, yeah, I want people to get the best. So there's some true insight into Sam's brain.
There you go. I looked it up. It says sympathy involves understanding from your own perspective. Empathy involves putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Well, that makes sense.
And understanding why they may have these particular feelings.
So they kind of are. They kind of
borderline. Yeah.
They really are borderline. So it is what it is. Okay, that's all I got for you guys today. Any questions? I forgot we can do questions on here.
Yeah, we can do.
I've gotten so used to the whole, like, I guess that was just kind of a rant about empathy. It's not really. You can see a little head bobbing around over there on your side.
Oh.
Dylan's head's popping around over there on the. Dylan, you better say hi.
I was saying that we need to put like Easter ears on him or something.
Put Mickey Mouse ears on him?
Yeah, Mickey Mouse ears. That would be good.
You could do that.
We could do Star Wars Mickey Mouse ears.
Yeah. That's the way we got to be empathetic to Dylan, is we have to watch Star Wars with him.
I totally agree with that.
It's going to be a really hard one for me. It's going to be really hard.
You're so silly.
We go. How about
we just go to Star Wars World?
I mean, I'm down with that. But what's the what's the new one on
Mandalorian? Yeah, we were talking about it this morning.
Can we bond on that one instead? Yeah. Okay, because I can do Mandalorian, the old Star Wars. I've never even seen all the old Star Wars, so.
Seriously?
Yeah, I know.
Our friendship.
Everybody probably just was like, "Oh, look, we lost everybody."
Everybody's gone. Nobody cares about you anymore.
All right. I guess that's it. No questions?
No.
You don't even have any questions?
No.
Oh.
What's for lunch?
What's for lunch? I don't know. What are you cooking? I had lunch for breakfast.
We did have lunch for breakfast.
It's good.
It's cold out.
Is it cold, or is it just gross out?
It's gross out.
We're supposed to go to a baseball game today, aren't we?
Next week.
Oh.
Or are you? I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll have to figure that out.
Peace out, guys.